Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Racha, Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Ezra, the 7th chapter. And just picking up from where we left off, in the 6th chapter, we saw the decree that was given by Darius to basically provide Israel with all the necessary, things that they needed, after confirming, in the records that Cyrus indeed did give the decree for us to go back and rebuild the temple. Okay, so everything we needed was given to us, and as we finished the chapter, we were able to successfully build the temple, keep the Passover, and so on and so forth. Now, Ezra, the 7th chapter, this takes place, at least a record of what we're going to read in here. This is, quite some time after the 6th chapter, right? Because in the 6th chapter, we had Darius the first, otherwise known as Darius the Great, which was ruling, right? And I believe they placed the completion of the temple right around 516 BC. But nonetheless, you have Darius who reigns up until 486. And then from there you have his son Xerxes, which is the king Ahasuerus, known in the book of Esther. And after him, you have his son Artaxerxes I, who is the king of, interest here in Ezra, the 7th chapter. Okay, so Artaxerxes I, I'm just going to have this tab on here, and we can get to it when we get to it. So this is the book of Ezra, chapter 7, verse 1. Ezra journeys from Babylon to Jerusalem. Now after these things, right, so after the things we had just read about in the 6th chapter, in the reign of Artaxerxes, king of Persia, Ezra, the son of Seraiah, the son of Azariah, the son of Hilkiah. Now, this Artaxerxes, we can actually even get some information on him here. If we go to dictionaries and we look up, I usually like to go to the Easton's Bible Dictionary, and if we just look up the name Artaxerxes, they give you a bit of information here about him, right? And we're more interested in the second part here. It says, the king mentioned in Ezra 7 and 1, in the 7th year, which they place around 458 BC. Now, let's go back and read here. As we keep on reading, it'll tell us in what year of this king's reign these things happened. But anyway, they place him around 458 BC. And when we go and look at Artaxerxes I, otherwise known as Longimanus, his reign was from 465 to 424. So that falls within range, right? 458 within that range. Anyway, of whose reign Ezra led a second colony of Jews back to Jerusalem, was probably Longimanus, which I believe means long-handed, who reigned for 40 years from 464 to 425 BC, the grandson of Darius, who 14 years later permitted Nehemiah to return and rebuild Jerusalem. So when we get to the book of Nehemiah, the same Artaxerxes is mentioned over there, to whom Nehemiah was the cupbearer. Okay, that's the same individual here, Artaxerxes I, otherwise known as Longimanus. Okay, and let's read just this little part about him here. It says he was the 5th king of kings of the Achaemenid Empire from 465 to December 424 BC. He was the 3rd son of Xerxes I. In Greek sources, he is also surnamed Long-Handed, which is in the Greek Longimanus, allegedly because his right hand was longer than his left. Interesting. Anyway, let's go back. So there's a little bit about him. And now you see that the events taking place here, around 450 something BC, from, this is at least over 50 years since the temple, over 50 years, right? Since the 6th chapter. Anyway, continuing on in Ezra chapter 7, verse 2. the son of Shallum, the son of Zadok, the son of Ahitub, the son of Amariah, the son of Azariah, the son of Meraioth, the sons of Zerahiah, the sons of Uzi, the son of Uzi, the son of Buki, the son of Abishua, the son of Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron the chief priest. So Ezra was a direct descendant of Aaron, all right, from that line. This Ezra went up from Babylon, and he was a ready scribe in the law of Moses. And you when you read the book of 1st and 2nd Esdras, you understand that he was learned, right? He did study, he did give his mind to learn the ways of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shai. Now let's actually pull up, let me see, Ezra journey from Babylon to Jerusalem. Sometimes when you put this in here, they give you, there you go, they give you some form of a nice visual. And actually, maybe I like this one a bit better. There, that's better. Cool. So we can see here, city of Jerusalem, they pointed out over here for us. And this is a visual for you. You have Cyprus, you have the Near East or the Levant, you have here Egypt, so, Arabia, and then Babylon and all of that, right? So Babylon being over here, okay, right around this region, all the way in the east. I believe this is somewhere around modern day Iraq. And imagining the route, right, that Ezra and them had to take, probably somewhere along these lines. However, just so you can get a visual from them leaving this area all the way coming back to Jerusalem, it's not a one day's journey. Now, I believe one of the reasons why they traveled in this manner, where they would go all the way up and then descend, was because majority of this part was mountainous, right? So, and then you had the desert over here. So it was much more difficult to travel through certain areas. And also, there were just certain paths that were established. Like today, right? When you're trying to get from one location to another, maybe it's like between states, there's certain interstates, right? Like I-95, I-80, I-this, that you just hop on that. And it's a known established road that you can take to get where you want to go. It doesn't make sense to try and find some other path, maybe go, here and, you go on the roads that have already been made, right? So similarly, back then you had different paths. I believe somewhere along here, either from this area going on, you had what was known as the King's Highway, and a lot of places, a lot of people who would try to traverse through our land would try to go through there, right? For example, going back to the time of the Assyrians, the fall of the Assyrian Empire, when Pharaoh Necho, right? This is at the time of the death of Josiah, right? You have Pharaoh Necho, who basically was trying to get passage through our land so that he could go and assist the Assyrians at Carchemish, right? And so he was going through, I believe he tried to cut through Megiddo, and that's when Josiah, went up in there to try and fight with him. Anyway, this is like a visual you can see, right? That he would have to travel from somewhere around here and go all the way around and descend into Jerusalem. That's a very probable path for them to take. Here's another image here, which shows a similar path from Babylon, probably going somewhere through here once again, and then descending through Damascus down to Jerusalem. So let's go back to the book of Ezra, chapter 7, verse 6. This Ezra went up from Babylon, and he was a ready scribe in the law of Moses, which the Lord Yahweh, God of Israel, had given. And the king granted him all his requests, according to the hand of the Lord Yahweh his God upon him. So in other words, the Most High put the spirit upon Artaxerxes to grant Ezra whatever request it is that he asked him. Verse 7, and there went up some of the children of Israel, and of the priests and the Levites, and the singers, and the potters, and the Nethinims, onto Jerusalem in the 7th year of Artaxerxes the king. So now you get that 458 or so. Now, at this point in time, the temple has been built, right? But the walls are still not built up like they were before. So at this point in time, the temple is already built, right? That was done. You know, we read that already with Zerubbabel and Joshua the high priest, or I think it was Jeshua. But all that was done. Okay, so at this point, Ezra is now going back over there, and as we keep on reading, you'll see sort of what were some of the decrees that the king gave, right? In line with pretty much giving Ezra permission to do whatever it is he had to do. So verse 8, and he came to Jerusalem in the 5th month, which was in the 7th year of the king. For upon the 1st day of the 1st month began he to go up from Babylon. So he left the 1st day of the 1st month from Babylon, and he arrived on the in the 5th month. Okay, so once again, going to show you that was a long journey, right? From the 1st month to the 5th month, that's quite a couple of months, not days, not weeks, months. Okay, like this year started, and we're about what, 6 months in. So imagine that. Where are we at? Okay. Verse 9, for upon the 1st day of the 1st month began he to go up from Babylon, and on the 1st day of the 5th month came he to Jerusalem, according to the good hand of his God upon him. Yeah, because when you're traveling like that, remember that because these are like known routes, you would also have bandits and people, like you have people today that lurk and you know, try to rob people and all that. Well, guess what? Back then it was also dangerous, because if you weren't, like if you were a king and you were traveling, of course you would have armies, you would have horsemen, footmen, soldiers, so you're good. But if you didn't have all of that, it could be potentially dangerous, especially if you're going there with riches, golden vessels, like all of these kinds of things. You know, anything could really happen there, whether you're camped, maybe spending the night, or anything of that sort. So that's why it says, according to the good hand of his God upon him, because the Most High granted Ezra and those that were with him protection as they went. All right. And because when we read in the book of First Ezra mentioned that he was ashamed to ask the king for an army or for protection, you know, after having boasted in the power of our God, then to turn around and say, hey, by the way, could you give us some protection? You know, he was embarrassed to do that. So he just said, you know what, let's make supplication to the Lord and let's keep our faith in the Lord, and then let's go. Verse 10, for Ezra had prepared his heart to seek the law of the Lord Yahweh and to do it, and to teach it in Israel, and to teach in Israel statutes and judgments. Now this is the copy of the letter that the king Artaxerxes gave unto Ezra the priest, the scribe, even a ready scribe, even a scribe of the words of the commandments of the Lord and of his statutes to Israel. Artaxerxes, king of kings, unto Ezra the priest, a scribe of the law of the God of heaven, perfect peace, and at such a time. I make a decree that all they of the people of Israel and of his priests and Levites in my realm, which are minded of their own free will to go up to Jerusalem, go with thee. So you have permission. You want to go, if you want to go with Ezra, basically if the Spirit is moving you to go, you're free to go. And yeah, of course, some went, but others didn't. Because if you had been brought captive over here, maybe at this point in time, you these were like your parents or grandparents that were part of the captives brought by Nebuchadnezzar to Babylon. And you've been dwelling here for, you know, a good while, a couple of generations maybe. So you're maybe the grandson of somebody, like your grandfather was one of the exiles that was brought over here. And now you've grown up in Babylon. You may know you're an Israelite and all of that, but maybe you now have a living. You have a house, maybe you have a wife, you have that kind of stuff. So you had certain Israelites that were living like that in Babylon, and they didn't want to go back to Jerusalem. Some of them were like, I've never been there. I was born here. Some of them were like, I think I want to stay here. I'm okay. I don't want to, like, what am I going to do? Pack up my house, sell all my belongings, and then go to Jerusalem? So maybe an example could be like, here you had, let's say, for example, and this is just a trivial example, right? But let's say we know you had slaves that were brought, right, from different parts of the world. If we take maybe like the western part of Africa, for example, and then they were brought here to America. And then, of course, now all these hundreds of years later, you have Jake all over the place, right? Now, imagine you tell Jake right now, somebody who's okay, they maybe they managed to buy a house, they have a good job, all of these things. And then you tell them, hey, by the way, now you're free to go back to Africa and you can go back to where you were. You don't have to worry about, the slavery and all that anymore. How many Israelites, here, how many, Israelites in that position here do you think would get up and say, I'm packing all my shit and I'm out? Assuming there's nothing bad going on here. Of course, now America is like a third world country, but assuming this wasn't the case, but you had a lot of them would just say, nah, I'm all right. It's good to know that they were brought from those places here, but I don't think I want to go back. Right. So just as an example, there. Verse 14, for as much as thou art sent of the king and of his 7 counselors to inquire concerning Judah and Jerusalem, according to the law of thy God, which is in thine hand. Right. Because, we had built the temple. We had established the foundation. We were doing the sacrifices. But then again, there was also eventually, when necessity is out of the way, you have Jake that starts to go, into wayward ways. So it was needful that Ezra would go back, being in the position that he was, with the understanding that he had, to see what's going on, see the state of our people, and correct them. Right? Verse 15, and to carry the silver and gold, which the king and his counselors have freely offered unto the God of Israel, whose habitation is in Jerusalem. And all the silver and gold that thou canst find in all the province of Babylon, with the freewill offering of the people and of the priests, offering willingly for the house of their God, which is in Jerusalem. That thou mayest buy speedily with this money bullocks, rams, lambs, with their meat offerings and their drink offerings, and offer them upon the altar of the house of your God, which is in Jerusalem. And whatsoever shall seem good to thee and to thy brethren, to do with the rest of the silver and the gold, that do after the will of your God. So we've given you silver and gold. The main priority is, buy the resources, right? The sacrifices, all of that, and go ahead and sacrifice to the Most High, for us and you. But after that, whatever is left, you do with it what you want, right? We trust you. Trust your sense of judgment. Verse 19, the vessels also that are given thee for the service of the house of thy God, those deliver thou before the God of Jerusalem. And whatsoever more shall be needful for the house of thy God, which thou shalt have occasion to bestow it out of the king's treasure house. So if there's any more expenses or anything else that you may need, guess what? Go ahead and get it, and it'll be like today they'll say on the house, right? But in this case, the house is the king's treasure. And I, even I, Artaxerxes the king, do make a decree to all the treasurers which are beyond the river, that whatsoever Ezra the priest, the scribe of the law of the God of heaven, shall require of you, it be done speedily, unto 100 talents of silver, and 100 measures of wheat, and to 100 baths of wine, and to 100 baths of oil, and salt, without prescribing how much. So pretty much whatever Ezra says he needs, do it fast. Okay, so anything within the range of 100, in terms of cost-wise, 100 talents of silver and all these measurements here, which I'm sure are a lot. Baths are probably some form of a measurement of liquid. You go ahead and you do it for him. And when it comes to salt, as much as he needs. And now when it says here, beyond the river, you can see here that that you have Babylon here, which is on the east of the Euphrates River, right? And so, you know, the probable meaning would be that all of the provinces that are on the other side of this river, right, which is like the other side, they also had tribute that they would pay to the king. And Ezra is saying, well, guess what? You're in this region, for example, where Jerusalem is and whatnot. Any governors and any people of authority that have been set up by the Persians over here are to adhere to whatever requests Ezra might have in regards to the temple or serving the Most High and any of that. And so any money that he would need, you give it to him speedily. Cool. Continuing on, verse 23. Whatsoever is commanded by the God of heaven, let it be done diligently, or let it be diligently done for the house of the God of heaven. For why should there be wrath against the realm of the king and his sons? So now keep in mind that Artaxerxes is a heathen, right? He's not an Israelite, but he understood and was aware of the Most High, right? The God of Israel, Yahweh, Bahasham Yahushai, and he knew the terror that the Lord could bring. Hence, he is making this statement here, and that's because the Lord had put the Spirit on him to do it anyway. Verse 24. Also, we certify you that touching any of the priests and Levites, singers, porters, Nethinims, or ministers of this house of God, it shall not be lawful to impose toll, tribute, or custom upon them. So any form of a taxation, no, you leave them alone. Verse 25, and thou, Ezra, after the wisdom of thy God that is in thine hand, set magistrates and judges. And magistrates and judges are almost like synonymous, like rulers, which may judge all the people that are beyond the river, all such as know the laws of thy God, and teach ye them that know them not. So those that are not familiar with the laws, teach it to them, and set up people in positions that can be like judges. Verse 26, and whosoever will not do the law of thy God and the law of the king, let judgment be executed speedily upon him, whether it be unto death, or to banishment, or to confiscation of goods, or to imprisonment. And yeah, keep in mind, even in our laws, right, in the Torah, there are certain laws that when you break them, you would be banished, right? You would be cut off from your people, right? And in one sense, there are certain laws that when you break, you would be put to death. And in another sense, you would be exiled. You'd be gone. Okay. And so what the Lord did here was he enforced the laws or the penalty of it by almost like a royal decree from the king. Verse 27, blessed be the Lord Yahweh, God of our fathers, which hath put such a thing in this, or such a thing as this, in the king's heart, to beautify the house of the Lord, which is in Jerusalem, and hath extended mercy unto me before the king and his counselors, and before all the king's mighty princes. And I was strengthened as the hand of the Lord Yahweh my God was upon me, and I gathered together out of Israel chief men to go up with me. And that brings us to the end of Ezra, the 7th chapter. So as you can see, this is pretty much the decree allowing Ezra to go back along with the chief, those that were willing and selected by him to go back to Jerusalem to check on the state, and also to instill the laws and pretty much bring order back. Okay, so with that, Lord willing, this was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Recha, Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.